So hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jennifer Hosein, and I'm the host for tonight's fabulous reading featuring Ellen Chang-Richardson, Tyler Pennock, Charlie Petch, Andrea Thompson, and myself. This event is generously funded by the League of Canadian Poets. And just a little reminder, could I ask you to make sure that you're muted when our poets are reading or performing? So we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, Toronto, and the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, Ottawa. We are grateful to have the opportunity to be present in these territories. We would like to express gratitude to and honor the people who have lived and worked on this land since time immemorial. It's important to understand the longstanding history that brought us to reside on the land and to seek to understand our role within that history. And please consider showing your support and donate to the 1492 Land Back Lane Legal Defense Fund, the Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan Land Defenders, and the Indian Residential School Survivors Society, and more. And I think all the poets have books or chapbooks for sale. And I would encourage you to reach out to them if you're interested in purchasing their books or chapbooks or getting in touch with them. And poets, please put your links to your books and websites in the chats if you wish. Okay. So I'm so excited to present our first reader this evening, Ellen Chang-Richardson. Sorry, I'm just gonna pause a second. Gotta slow down. Ellen Chang-Richardson is an award-winning poet of Taiwanese and Chinese Cambodian descent. The author of 3 poetry chapbooks, their multi-genre work has appeared in The Fiddlehead, Vallum Contemporary, and Watch Your Head, among others. They sit on the editorial boards of Long Con Magazine and Room, and currently live on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabeg, Ottawa, Ontario, where they co-curate Riverbed Reading Series and write collaboratively as part of the Poetry Collective 7. Find them online at EHJ Chang and www.ehjchang.com. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Before I start, I'm actually going to drop a context document into the chat. This kind of gives you background into the pieces that I'm reading tonight. I am also doing a screen share, so once I figure that tech shit out, I will start my clock. Give me 2 seconds here. Okay, let me see here. So, can you all see that? Are we good? Yeah, all right. So thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me tonight. I'm really excited to be here and reading alongside these incredible writers. I'm going to read a couple poems from my debut collection, and then a few ekphrastic pieces, and I'm going to wrap up my set with a collaborative piece from 7. It's actually a little sneak preview into a chapbook that we are launching this month with Gap Riot Press. So it's read with consent from Gap Riot, and they're really excited for us. So I'm going to start. Unlucky Fours was published in 2020 from Anne Struther Press. It was my debut chapbook, and unfortunately it's sold out, but you'll get to see a couple poems from it tonight. To give you an idea of what the chapbook was about, I'll read you the epigraph. The chapbook was dedicated to the Janus types and the contemporary diaspora that make unluckiness possible. This is number 3, A. I excavate my mother's stories momentarily, once remembered as safe, stored lock and key, carved walnut, smooth mahogany, sandalwood incense, the toll of distant gongs, these dragonflies dance through. R-E. I grasp for comprehension. Rearrange my crumpled body, equilibrium. Space condenses before I realize we sit 30,000 feet above the sea. The murmur of engines draws in a trembling silence, and I dream of revolution. I'm gonna move on to a few Ekphrasis pieces. My second chapbook that was published by Gap Riot in 2021, question mark? 2020 is a series of Ekphrasis, which is traditionally poetry about a work of art. I am working on a larger collection of that, which kind of pushes that narrative into describing not just a single work of art, but an artist's entire body of work. We're going to start with Yonveau. Yonveau is a Vietnamese, German, Mexican contemporary artist whose work really emerges from personal relationships and fortuitous encounters. His final pieces often take form as objects and images, and they have multiple layers of meaning, and they're usually installation. Yonveau is currently represented by Marion Goodman Gallery internationally. This piece that I'm reading is called One Whose Name Was Water. It's an erasure of chapter 6, Here Lies One Whose Name Was Writ in Water, which is from Bartholomew Ryan's keynote essay on 9 artists. 9 artists was displayed in 2013 at the Walker Art Center in the US, and Ryan at the time was the assistant curator of that show. This is One Whose Name Was Water. Eventually, things diverge. Different. Identities are complex. History is mutable, unsettled always. Meanwhile, life is full of institutions. Conceptually, theoretically, ultimately, socially. Perhaps that is the point. Shifting documents, institution to institution, remarkable until. The next Ekphrasis I'm going to read is inspired by the work of Tim Zuck. Ekphrasis can also be about love. It can be about something that really hits you deep. I worked closely with Tim Zuck when I was an assistant curator at Barbara Edwards Contemporary in Toronto. And this poem was written from a place of reflection. Zuck's works are deceptively simple, but upon further focused learning, they can reveal complex formal relationships. And he currently lives in Nova Scotia, where he suffers from dementia. The last time we saw each other, he didn't recognize me anymore. This is Moored Figures for Tim Zuck. Limbs collapse against a throbbing thigh. Shock value for traditional sentiments and old ladies visiting white cubes. Imagine that water as it laps up against shores unseen, reality merging with a dream. Your images rise, collide with my mind, trompe-l'oeil, transport me back to when your memory was more than a caught breath grasping, more than a thin thread winding, more than this reality tangled, obscene. Rowboat bumps against a rocky shore. The faint aroma of prawns cooking, the laughter of friends, as forgotten as the wind that breathes its last note. But I can still hear your wisdom. its ink breeze light against my cheeks, its paper heart beat in the palm of my hand. Ekphrasis can also touch on the up and coming. The next piece I'm going to read is an ekphrasis inspired by the work of Caroline Monet. Caroline Monet is a rising multidisciplinary artist, originally from Ottawa, Quebec. She is both Anishinaabe and French, and her installation works and her multimedia artworks demonstrate a keen interest in communicating those complex ideas around bicultural living and Indigenous identity in a contemporary world. The specific piece I'm going to read was inspired by the artwork that's on the screen right now, Proximal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which was on display at the National Gallery of Canada in 2019. It's part of their permanent collection, which in my mind is super freaking cool. This is the middle ground for Caroline Monet. Uncertain violence traverses an ancient route. Brutalities hidden while we are taught the wisdom of human commerce and capitalism. We are cogs, a whole made of parts standing in shadows of inference, abstraction. Bound by spaces where spheres move, a womb into a double moon, sphering a path that winds itself around and across our tombs. Creatures of data. The Atlantic Ocean is raw. The Atlantic Ocean is heavy. The Atlantic Ocean is a wild passage between three territories. Children of data. The Atlantic Ocean is raw. The Atlantic Ocean is heavy. The Atlantic Ocean is a wild passage full of dead bodies. I'd also like to give shout outs to Shazia Hafiz Ramji, who inspired the layout of this poem, as you can see by the gray out at the bottom. If you haven't read Port of Being, it's a great collection, published by Invisible. The last piece I'm going to read in terms of ekphrasis is inspired by the work of Taras Politeiko. So ekphrasis can also touch on the political, the incredibly important and the happening right now. Taras is currently in Chernivtsi, Ukraine, where he's collecting funds for medication and bulletproof vests for citizens who have volunteered to defend the Ukrainian war front. This specific piece was inspired by Cradle, which was made in 1995, where Taras went to Chernobyl, exposed himself to radiation, came back to Canada, and filled his blood into that bathtub you see sitting on the screen. It was displayed at the Mendel Art Gallery in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan that summer. And a lot of Taras's work deals with war and our relationship to it. I had spoken to Taras before this evening, and he does say that anyone who's interested in donating to the Ukrainian or his efforts to defend Ukraine should contact him via Facebook because of privacy issues and send him a direct message so that you can get his email address to e-transfer him. That's simply because of privacy and to protect him from Russia. This is Chernobyl for Taras Politeiko. I bend deep in to the liquid iris of your macro lens, catch pretty little beings draped in porcelain, ivory, and red, clasp teeth and I surrender the chills that break at your lips on 4,000 bloodless chests. I'm gonna finish off my set tonight with a little bit more levity. This next and final piece was written by Seven. Seven was formed at the beginning of the pandemic, first as a way to kind of stave off the pandemic blues. And we've kind of become a thing. I don't know what I would do without them. Seven is myself, Manahil Banditwala, Conyer Clayton, Nina Jane Dristic, Chris Johnson, Margot LaPierre, and Helen Robertson. This is from our upcoming chapbook with Gap Riot Press, and the chapbook itself is called Holy Disorder of Being. This is its first poem. On a Sunday afternoon walk, the girl fell into the sky. The little scraps from her purse, receipts, hold on. This screen, hold on. I was doing so well. And then the screen blocked off my view. 1 second. Okay. Sorry. Technology. Can you see that? Okay, sorry. Let's start again, if I have that time, Jennifer. Thank you. This is our first poem, and it's from Holy Disorder of Being. On a Sunday afternoon walk, the girl fell into the sky. The little scraps from her purse, receipts, bus transfers, and empty blister pack of pills left a Milky Way of detritus, Anthropocene constellations drawn not by a new mother goddess, but a woman descending the heavens. She cried a celestial why and heard air whistling in her ears. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're trying at softness, but sadly, we're just so sorry. An echo is pain's doggerel, a holy show of heat. Also, glitter gathering round her thighs like so many rippled stars. Rippled, now ripped, she's unsure where they lint. Is it by her feet, or is it by her ankles? By the tips of her toes or the deeps of her pupils? Cupping her hands, she waits to catch the spaces between her bones, takes those ripped stars and leaves the Ys to the absent hues. If you take her shallow marrow, divide it by the tight swelling of space that shifts her, and wait for gravity to swallow color, no robin egg, no forest green, no pigments of living left to swirl, she will sketch a saintless astronomy. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Ellen. That was fabulous. Wow.
I'm sorry about the tech glitch. I actually ran the rest of my site, not being able, like the rest of that set, I couldn't see what I was reading.
Oh, it's hard to read when you can't see it.
Anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ellen. That was great. Okay. Okay, so I'm thrilled to introduce our next reader, Andrea Thompson. Andrea Thompson is a poet, novelist, editor, and educator. In 2005, her spoken word album, One, was nominated for a Canadian Urban Music Award. And in 2019, her album, Solations, helped earn her a League of Canadian Poets Golden Beret Award for Excellence. Thompson is the co-editor of Other Tongues, Mixed Race Women Speak Out, author of the novel Over Our Heads, and is the 2021 recipient of the Pavlik Poetry Prize. She is an editor at Brick Books and the artistic director of Brickyard Online Spoken Word Showcase. Thompson's collection, A Selected History of Soul Speak, was published by Frontenac House as a part of their 2021 quartet series. Her website is www.andreathompson.ca. Welcome, Andrea.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, wow, there's a ton of people here. Thank you for coming, everybody. And thank you, Ellen, for that gorgeous reading. I learned so much. It was so immersive. And Jennifer, thank you for putting this together. I'm so happy to be on the bill. Like these are like, I'm fangirling with the with the bill that you have here. So, okay, I'm going to be reading from my new book, and it's was a long time coming. It's my first book in 20 years. So I kind of packed everything into it, and it explores the art of writing, the art of spoken word, and the influence of Black North American history and culture on both of those art forms. So I'm going to start at the end. I'm starting with a poem that was that came out of a prompt, a writing prompt. I went to a writing workshop with my class. I hadn't been writing for ages. I loved this prompt, which is art is a wound turned to light. So I wrote this called Wound Turned to Light. The light of witnessing existence makes everything beautiful again, brings rebirth to those disowned parts of self, those shattered fragments the world deems unworthy, those darkened days and tired nights of soul deep weariness become refreshed through the act of simply recording what it is to be ourselves, unabashed, naked, living on this crushed ball of stardust, what it is to be us, hurtling through the universe, bouncing up against each other like ideological pinballs at a time when the polarity of this planet has sent so many of us off on our own diametrical trajectory away from the core. When the weight of interpersonal animosity has become crippling, when the term respectfully disagree is about to become extinct. In this moment, I bow down and thank God for bestowing us with the gift of creativity, for endowing all of us humans a life-giving method of release to the pressures of simply existing, a way to translate pain into beauty, a way to open up the valve on it all and begin to let off steam. What a gift it is to be given this moment, to be invited to express all the colors of this jagged emotional palette without judgment, to simply say yes. Yes to the raw red of rage, yes to the yellow of hope, yes to the bruised hearted blues, yes to unfathomable purple, yes. Yes, 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 and amen to it all. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, so the next poem I'm gonna do is kind of like a love poem to spoken word, and it's called Ode to Spoken Word. Oh, you mighty art form, you cross-genre monster of literary hybridity, you enigmatic mammoth, you bombastic behemoth, roar, you poetic centaur, roar. You guru of fusion, you drop dope patois dub in the middle of a slick hip hop remix, you wild writing werewolf, you howl your truth into silence. You rhyme with the riddling wit of a sphinx, you rap with the rhythm of linguistic gymnastics, you assassin of ignorance, you catalyst of empathetic intelligence. You show us the beauty of a human being in all their glorious, brilliant imperfection. You gorgeous genre jumping gorgon, you mystical mermaid of metaphor, you shape shifting spell casting storyteller, you magical unicorn of free verse, you conjure connection beyond the fourth wall and teach us strength by being vulnerable. You transformer of language, you alchemist of vernacular cadence, you're a confluence of catharsis, a carnival of goosebumps. You onomatopoeic, snap-happy, postmodern, pun-dropping fountain of figurative images. You lyric twisting troubadour, you poetically obsessed idealist. Oh, you mercurial angel, you artistic heretic, you literary misfit. You might drop right juicy images into creation, into the garden of our imaginations. You hyperbolic prophet, you poetic Pegasus, you sing it like scripture, you testify like gospel, you seduce us all with your siren song. You are the personified embodiment of raw, uninhibited inspiration. Your words declare, I am here. You slammed your own brand of performative poetics into existence, reinvented the word, and invited the world to hear you preach in the mighty church of verse. You saved language from servitude, from slavery, from imprisonment in the ivory tower of privilege linguistics, and emancipated all of us. You crusader of counterculture, you vehicle for versified resistance, you transmitter of the mythical, you made words dance, igniting a creative renaissance. You wise, sagacious griot, your courage, your fire, revs the engine of our human evolution. Oh, you mighty hybrid art form. You spoke truth to power, encouraged intelligent articulation over violence, resurrected passionate expression, and made poetry fun again. Okay, so thank you. I'm looking right at you, Jennifer. You're like my big trees. So like, hi, me and Jennifer are having a reading. Two things that always happen, jazz hands, two things that always happen when I read. Lately, my voice goes, and then George the cat tries to run in the room. So George is in the other room, locked away for now. We'll see how my voice does. So I want to share the title poem from my book. This is the cover. I want to show you because one of my students painted this gorgeous picture. Her name is Sarita Wignall, and she's a fabulous artist. So this is the title poem, and it traces it's self-evident, never mind. Okay. Seemingly innocent spirituals, to both master and overseer, they were merely words, simple lyrics, ingenuous hallelujah ballads. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. But these words were charms, incantations chanted at secret freedom code, surreptitious melodies sung by restless slaves. Chariot became train, became a rumbling underground, echoing over plantation field of cotton, tobacco, and cane. Gospels for safety, for shouts, never mind, battle cries would leave a brother dead cold in a heartbeat. Mothers with babies strapped to the bent to near snap back sung the unrelenting sun of the old South, and men with bodies worked hard and raw till they were little more than meat and bone, recounted these so-called silly spirituals to both each other and God. God, they asked for strength. Each other, they asked for directions, where to cross over that river and where to board that subterranean northbound train to freedom. Then came the blues, belting out anguish over injustice after emancipation failed to deliver the promised land. Instead, sending Klansmen who strung up to lifeless one brother after another, as law enforcers turned away and crosses burned till dawn. Dallas blues, Memphis blues. I ain't had nothing but bad news, crazy blues. Unabashed, these words laid claim to the pain of generations. Love was sought, found, and gone, gone, gone. But still our history will not be undone. And so the young entered at their peril the guarded gates of academia, living the vision of Booker T. Washington, where scholarly success meant abandoning one's own language, meant adopting the mother tongue of Uncle Tom. Until a hunger for our own vernacular mingled with the passion of romanticism and a new language was born. On the page, on the stages of smoky coffee houses, deep in the heart of Harlem. In this Renaissance, we began to reclaim ourselves, began to own our newly found freedom to simply read and write out loud, to make love and meaning from our suffering, to live out loud, word by word on our own terms. Langston Hughes left a language deep as the Euphrates that flowed into the ocean of Gwendolyn Brooks, bestowing permission for preachment as Amiri Baraka and Sonia Sanchez reloaded the literary canon with unapologetic verse fueled by didacticism. And up here in the true north, beyond that 49th parallel, Clifton Joseph and Lillian Allen waged a rub-a-dub revolution, and all across the country, slam and hip hop brought the acronym of rhythm and poetry back to the streets, and ghetto speak became fodder for heightened verbal artistry. These are our ancestors of verse, and this is our lineage, and still unsung are so many who first spoke the words that birthed the language of soul speak. Okay, so thanks. Hey, Jennifer, do I have time for one more 2 minutes? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so I want to play a little background music. This is from my album Solarations. I wrote this because I had writer's block, because I thought, I've been around for a long time doing this writing thing. I better be clever. Oh no, wait, I suck. Oh no, I better be clever. I couldn't write it all. And so I thought about all the pep talks I give to my students, and I'm like, write that down. Pep talk yourself. So this is how that turned out. I better get the poem because menopause memory. Okay, here we go. Write like there's a gun to your head. Write like your life depends on it. Write like writing is water and you are on fire because you are. Write like standing up for yourself, like having your own back. Write like what you think, what you feel matters, because it does. Write like your words can save the world, because they can. Write like every poem is a song. You know that song played at just the right time, that song that you swear was written with you in mind, that killing me softly, reading my diary song. Poems are like that. All of them are full of magic, healing, and connection. So write the deliciousness of your slice of the human pie. Write the beauty of your perspective, your view from there where you now are, there from your spot on this connected circumference. Write because we need you, need your voice in the chorus in order to be whole. Write because, yeah, badass. Write because your heart is broken. Write like lightning, write like revenge. Write for your mother, write for your daughter, write for your dearly departed, write for your ancestors. Write to stop yourself from punching a hole in the wall. Write to stop cutting your arms. Write like a howl into silence. Write like you are your own dear heart, beloved. Write like you are precious, because you are. Write like you know you are already whole. Write like writing is water and you are a river. Write like a lighthouse. Write like your future self. Write like coming home. Okay, so that music was by Everett Oz and his beautiful wife, Courtney Brooks Buxton, and it's from my album. Thank you for letting me go a little over time. Thanks everybody for listening.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Andrea. That was so moving and so musical and so beautiful. Everyone, I'm very excited to continue with our evening. This is so much fun. I'm going to introduce our next reader, Tyler Pennock. Tyler Pennock is a two-spirit adoptee from a Cree and Métis family around the lesser Slave Lake region of Alberta. Tyler is a member of Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. They are a sessional lecturer in the Indigenous Studies Department at the University of Toronto. They graduated from Guelph University's Creative Writing MFA program in 2013 and currently live in Toronto. Their first book, Bones, was published in 2020 by Brick Books. Their website is www.tylerpennock.ca. Welcome, Tyler.
Miigwech. Red, yellow, and orange burst out, a cacophony of my intent. My voice once green turned brilliant, the years of silence fermented. My intentions bursting through green melting, the fermented silence, and opening my voice. I wish I knew those words the way an adult child can know themselves through a found blanket, found photo, or found sibling. I wish I knew them the way a chest swell and rolling salt tear on your cheek curls back an ash fog of forgetting. I wish those words were the sting of fresh air after a house fire, the flicker vertigo before a coughing fit, expelling somnolent coating of black tar and carbon threads that briefly found a home. I wrote them, we wrote them, hoping they might skewer meaning through the skin I've grown around this being, this roughshod compilation of half-finished limbs, each a coping tool no longer used enough to matter. We wrote them to brand and return our traumas, a geography of these depressions and rises, too numerous to be noticed, a continent of features crowding the map, appearing banal from a distance. A word about caution. Being careful works in worlds where care was created. But for us, care means we should never be careful in a way that spares the architects, the inhalers of our recent world. They chose our pain based on their own. And a mirror never holds light for long. If I was just a shoulder, could I touch you with the rounded part? Could I slide my entire being down your back and ask you to notice? Or turn myself around and float away so that even this small part of me is unknown to you? Should I wait until you touch me? Will small bumps mar my skin? Will shivers outline the small of my back? Will tremors sculpt the length of my thighs? Will the air sear my inner places as my chest fills with remembering the body I once had? Brick walls and a couch in the corner where a photographer sat and smiled, I'm weak, while his girlfriend watched from the bar. I sat on the balcony with close friends, aware that our return inside was anticipated, by eyes eager to see how we moved in youth. Whether we did it smoothly, strong and calculating, as solid as their imagining, or if we moved like water, flexible and insistent. Every night leaving, we passed a jar holding biscotti that no one bought, and a sign that read, "The bread that goes both ways." No one should shape our beauty, the canvas on which we splatter our collective sigh after the struggle to find safety is won. What is your age in trauma years? Trans moms Charlene, Shauna Taylor, and Amanda watched for us where street and bar lights couldn't, Behind green walls, darkened glass, we could dance our freedoms until our excesses turned boring, as comforts torn through judgment, hurt and denial grew lavish, immoderate, obscene. We traumatizing the world we'd escaped. A balance, evening out the wrinkles, stretching oppression in the opposite direction of a center too heavy to concede even a little brightness. Should I survive the spring, I know it won't be because I'm strong. Few of us are. We're like girdled trees, hard, thirsty, and suffocating. Forests gleaming beautiful briefly, bursting red and brown in early death. Shaped this way by governing, hegemonizing, dominating hands. Whiter, softer than bark, and yet small aggressions multiplied and unceasing, clot and choke the same. More efficient than knives or axes. There's no blood spray to outline a darkened killer. No sap rushing out to stick, hold, or stop the blades that release it. Time. It feels like I've got the taste of time. Watching sunlight sneak upward, climb beside my bedside table and rest on a blank notebook I hadn't opened in months, I thought. Time. It feels like I've got the taste of time stuck in my throat, fixed where I don't want it. While uncertainty invites another dusk in, time growing in the space where my breath should be, robbing me. The sun continues and casts shadows on a sock turned the color of bruises, torn off in frustration after a winter's day of being alone once again. Time. It feels like time, thieving sensations others disregard. Time, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 times. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 times. Better if the number is prime times. Every inhale and exhale, deeply breathing, holding some air is me, fearing the hollow inside that returns, chasing solace that refused to stay forever, chasing breath that refuses to stay solace. Moonlight joins the fray, creating art of clothing piles I planned to wear discarded, my brain skewering hope to the floor again. Yoy. I don't know if me hyperventilating in a room alone means I miss you, or if I'm just remembering us through the panic we shared, and I'm clawing at our trauma bonds to bring back the feeling of you, with the same confusion of a child crying over empty boxes, trying to remember a good Christmas. We all want, some want harder than others, adeptly piercing our resistance, our lack of consent in a fevered pitch, erecting dams, bridges, railroads, pipelines, and celebrating their ingenuity. They feel like a sickness that enters easily and replicates unseen until a fever begins burning through cells. I worry that we've been fevered too long and our body doesn't know how to heal anymore. As the constant friction and force of intent gives way to calluses in flesh too tired to resist. These words, I wrote them all to greet grandparents I'll never know. And I still do. In this, I'm already relocating, reorienting to the novelty that their mention provides. Like dust in the grip of a sun's efforts through a window. translucent collagen knots floating downward behind my pupils, and yet through everything. Connecting should be easier, shouldn't come with this much resistance and pain. Whether it was you or the screaming man across from me, I feel like every time I try, someone is injured. My attempts signaling the nature of harm like skin stretching out beyond the tip of a knife, yawning. Hoarding the air around it, seeking compensation for what the blade will take. After the dilating moments, the crackling split, lightning through hot layers above a pink bed, reddening. I'm always pushing, hoping to avoid the inevitable. This one's a dream. Do I read it? Am I good for time? I don't know. I'm good. Okay, well,
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
After we met, I had the same dream every night for months. The ice was wet, eager, urgent, and heavy, covering everything in sheets. When it caught and hardened, it pulled like fast pavement on determined flesh. Windows, walls, clothes, light, heat, color, breath, skin, blood, bone, everything seemed to sing its tiredness in gravity, begging to be released from connection. Except the faces. Hundreds of people wearing colorless coats passed me as I moved, and they smiled. Fixed smiles without even a tremble watched me while they continued past. As I turned to look, those smiles continued facing me. Their bodies couldn't provide any boundary to the glare. The smiles swam through other features. In others, their necks twisted, limits announced by grinding, snapping sounds. Like the ice, their faces had a hunger for warm things. These were eyes that knew their next meal, lips that coveted texture, pupils and tongues that owned everything they took in. I turned to a window, hoping to find my own face, something in my own face, something like safety and comfort. Ice was already forming on my cheeks, pulling color, skin, the light in me downward. Before I turned away, the reflection filled with hundreds of eyes and mouths, inhaling. Next. There's only two. If feelings come in waves, then remembering is a shore I've stuck in the path of a swell I can't see the bottom of. So I measure its brutality by the distance between troughs. The balance of extremes paid in destruction, a quickening mass wedging and kneading the rising bank that presses back. Dual compression forcing salt waves up, out, over, and through what my island had little time to grow. I think spring comes for all of us. There's no judgment in the thaw. Of seeds scattered, long buried under frost and lack of change, potency coiled, compressed, implacable. When growth returns, the winter in me waits like a child frozen by their foster parents stirring, as though the floor was littered with blades waiting for the smallest twitch to score an opening. We aren't made for stillness, and the blood must do its work. Final one. You asked about my brain, wondered how I survived the constant checking. I don't. I explode every memory, kaleidoscoping patterns out of them. Every color of a moment burst into acute angles, perforating context, making a rabble out of simple interactions. I know. It sounds beautiful. If you don't understand what clings to it, suckling like a lamprey. On good days, I can ignore it. But mostly, I'm a person with a painful itch that grows into a gaping wound because my hands can't be convinced to stop. Miigwech, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. I'd like to introduce our next reader, Charlie Petch. Charlie Petch, they, them, he, him, is a disabled, queer, transmasculine, multidisciplinary artist who resides in Toronto, Toronto. A poet, playwright, librettist, musician, lighting designer, and host, Petch was the 2017 Poet of Honor for Speak North National Festival, winner of the Golden Beret Lifetime Achievement in Spoken Word with the League of Canadian Poets 2020, and founder of Hot Damn, It's a Queer Slam. Petch is a touring performer as well as a mentor and workshop facilitator. They are launching Daughter of Geppetto, a multimedia dance, music, performance, poetry piece with Wind in the Leaves in April 2022. Launched their full-length poetry collection, Why I Was Late, with Bricks Books, which got a Best of 2021 from the Walrus, and filmed their libretto, Medusa's Children, with Opera QTO. They have been featured on CBC's Q, the Toronto International Festival of Authors, and were long listed for the CBC Poetry Prize in 2021. Their website is www.charliecpetch.com. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You can hear me okay? Good. Yeah, I did most of those things in the privacy of my own living room over the past 2 years. So it's been so great. I'm just really glad to be here and to be amongst these incredible poets. Tyler Pennock, I've been like such a fan since Bones came out, and like just seeing you at the Glad Day, and Andrea Thompson, you know how big a fan I am of yours, and like to have you as an editor is just stunning, and exactly what my collection needed as a spoken word artist, putting things on the page. So, and Ellen, like that was just I just want to go to art galleries with you now and like pick your brain. It's just incredible. And Jennifer Hosein is like one of the biggest, like just brings everybody up, together. And like you're such a community lover of poets, and your work is so strong. And so this is a really beautiful night to also celebrate you and the gorgeous curation and like of the audience, as well. Like this is a huge night online, so thank you very much. And also, Ellen, thank you so much for putting out there some direct action that we can do to support the Ukraine. My family is Ukrainian. My family name is Kozak. We are Cossack Ukrainian, which for those of us who know who Cossacks are, they are, or don't know, they're like a warrior class. They're sort of like samurai of the Eastern Bloc. So we're very powerful people, and like watching people fight and stand up, and everything has been so incredible, and like being able to march with people as well and hear the language and hear the music. And this is my mom went to the Ukraine a couple of years ago. And came back sponsoring a family. She's like, I found this family. And she got this men's shirt there. So I've been wearing it a lot. I've been wearing it with so much pride. And also as a trans person, to receive a men's shirt from my mom is just gorgeous and beautiful. So I wanted to do this poem about my family, the Family Kozak. And we're from Surrey, BC. We are big, tough people, and if anybody's been to Surrey, BC, yes, I've heard that joke. Okay, so so this is called the Family Kozak. This is from my cousin who passed away years ago, maybe, oh gosh, like 10 years ago now. He was a bodybuilder, and he competed in the Mystery Universe pageants. So, and he got real lean and real muscular, and it wasn't always a good thing. So this is for him, and it's called The Family Kozak. Surrounded by beer signs, frog figurines, and a deep-fried carnivore menu, you climbed. Told your body it was immortal, your hands molotoks, your skin bronya. How did you walk this earth without the help of horses, shuskas, and spears? You posed in front of a Schwarzenegger cutout, injected the power to change into muscle twitch, lips dripping protein shakes, poisoned your family blood to be a perfect man instead of their son. As the muscle grew and the fat fell and the hallucinations began pulsing in your steroid brain, you became convinced you had escaped your family. Did you forget that we are Cossacks? Brutal border guards, you fool. You strode backwards into ancestry. They oiled your body, clad you in spodniki, then gave you work bouncing people out of buildings. Did they feel like we Russian dolls? We Cossacks rode your rippled back, put you into battle first, so that we might be equally as terrifying, stumbling in the wake of you. So thank you so much. And even though I've painted a fairly brutal picture of, but it's, you know, to grow up in a lot of constant war, and the Cossacks are not a soft people. We don't have that nice of a history either. So just to recognize that as well. But, you know, as we are looking at that genocide, you know, it's important not to lose focus on the other genocides around the earth that are happening as well, because they all have equal importance. And I do recognize that the Ukrainians are getting so much more attention because of our whiteness. I would also like to maybe I'll do a huge switch into yeah, so it was also International Women's Day. For some reason, like years ago, I used to try and get thrown out of International Women's Day things. Anyways, it's apparently transmasculine. And yeah, so I have this poem, and it's for people with uteruses that don't want to have children and seem to have to fucking explain that to everybody. Thank you, Ellen. So, okay, here we go. It's called My Body is a Vessel? Okay. As someone who appears to have a uterus, I often hear that my body is a vessel. Oh, a vessel, I say? Like the Millennium Falcon? Like a luxury cruise liner? I imagine tiny deck chairs and splashy pool smells coming from my belly button. But no. Tick, tick, they say. Women are having children well into their 40s, they say. There's still time to find another husband, they claim. Well, I hear that trans couples are adopting well into their 50s. I hear that some women are not having children happily into their 90s. My body isn't missing anything other than like a better spleen and like some interchangeable sex organs, like would be really nice. Thanks. My body is a vessel for art, for unfinished poems, for unfinished love affairs, for an ending affection for whatever family I have, and I do not hate children. Well, okay, yes, maybe I did watch Eraserhead a few too many times to truly enjoy the sounds of a newborn baby. Ah! And maybe... but I still go to like pageants and hockey games, to recitals. I've read bedtime stories to children I've held as babies. I am proudly Uncle Charlie, and when your child is old enough, I will teach them how to swear and bring me booze. My body is not a vessel. It's not waiting for a seed. And though many parents will tell me that I am missing the greatest love of all, you need not remind me of something that I will never know. Because as a human, I do know that sometimes the greatest gift you can give is to be childless. Because kids need people who want to be parents. Thank you. Yeah. Erase. I love when people like get the Eraserhead. I know I'm in a good house if people are getting an Eraserhead reference. So thank you so much. I want to do a couple more. So this one, So yeah, I guess I'll talk a bit about this book that was lovely. The wonderful artist Emmy Zmira made this gorgeous, gorgeous front cover and back cover, and then little like pictures inside. She's been a collaborator of mine, of each other's for like many, many years. So this is just the joy that Brick brought her on for this, and the dream of having Andrea Thompson as an excellent editor was so great. And Nick Tran was also editing this, so I want to say thank you to everybody for that. Yeah, oh, I guess yeah, maybe I'll do this and then yeah, okay. So I guess like a lot of this book is sort of talks about masculinity, right? Like as a trans person, it's like I am like a scholar of masculinity at this point, because, even before I knew what I was, wanting to be one of the guys. How do I be one of the guys? How to, and, yeah, and there's good things about that and there's not so good things about that. And a lot of this book talks about sort of all the sides of that with much empathy for everybody who has been told this lie of what masculinity is supposed to be and what femininity is supposed to be, and ne'er the two shall meet. And that's been harming us all for so long. I like to have poems that are realistic and also to like give people a path back. So I'm going to do this one about my first lisping hero. About Mike Tyson. So any Mike Tyson fans out there, this one is for you. My first lisping hero. We called you champ. Mike Tyson. When you and I open up our mouths, they turn into bullseyes, and we stay silent in our defense because words can be landmines to step into. The first time I saw you unapologetic, unabashed on the mic, you became my first lisping hero. I imagined us in my playground, bullies fleeing our earthquake footsteps. I tried to duck and dance around them like a butterfly Ali, but you were no one's punching bag. You launched iron fists back to the tune of 38 arrests before you hit age 13. The boxing world plucked you from reform school. Maybe you felt saved. I know how education can seem like the enemy, and for a boy targeted for his high-pitched, lispy voice, you probably felt relieved the teachers would never call on you again. Your lisp never got better. Your voice never dropped. You put up your dukes. Mike Tyson, sometimes when you give up on language, your dreams can narrow. Before your mom died, she gave you to your boxing coach, Gus D'Amato, who polished you up like a customato, but he never could install any brakes. There were no bells in the bedrooms you strode into, no towels to be thrown in front of your thundering ways, raised to be a wild animal. You look calmest, wrestling with your Bengal tiger. Even your friends said you belonged in a cage. But Mike, yours used to betrayal is being punched in the gut. I mean, the person who could have protected you left when you were just 2 years old. There are no S's in dad. You could have said it every day without fear of retribution. Instead, you shouted into barrel chests. It bounces back with the blank stares of men who love you for your fists and the bags of money they bring. Maybe what you needed was a male embrace, not to be cut short by a bell. Now, in the wake of Hollyfield's spat-out ear, your empire crumbles, your 4-year-old daughter dies, your other children look at you in fear, and your beloved tiger paces behind some stranger's bars. The television calls you a monster, speaks of your lies, your crimes, your legacy of violence. Mike, I like your new heavyweight fight, the one called sobriety. As your daughter's easy laughter makes you father again, makes you a champion. I've written so many endings to your poem, Mike. Some were too kind, others damned you, but you grew in love and recovery. Some humans are capable of so much when we give them a chance to get up off the mat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, Charlie. That was fantastic. Wow.
Thank you. I have one left, and it's a. Oh, sorry. Was that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were ending. Go ahead.
Oh no. So I have one left. Right now, I'm developing a play I wrote about being a hot dog vendor in downtown Toronto. And it's like everything I needed to know about emergency response I learned as a hot dog vendor in downtown Toronto. So I've worked as like a 911 operator in a hospital, bed allocate, an emergency room clerk, and a bunch of things. But like everything I needed to know about those things I learned as a hot dog vendor. So it's kind of a play. It's sort of a busking event with a bunch of novelty instruments. And maybe it's also a de-escalation technique workshop. So, and it's called No One's Special at the Hot Dog Cart. So I wanted to perform one of the poems from that. And yeah, I'm gonna use some things. This is a standard issue for hot dog vendors, tongs, which will be used, and a nice serrated knife. That's the weapons you get. This should be bacon bits, but I haven't found the right sounding bacon bits yet, so it's just an egg shaker. Okay, and it'll be, so this is like a song that I used to play when sometimes my boss would fall asleep and I would just sit on the corner of Church and Gerrard until the sun came up because I couldn't go anywhere. His shit would get stolen. So I would sing this song by U2, Running to Stand Still. So that's just a little backdrop for it. So I'm just going to move some stuff around, and here we go. Okay. What? Okay, hi. Does that sound okay to you? Okay, great. Okay. I don't know where my stage manager went, but the dog left, I guess. Yeah, that was Tempo the dog for anybody who like wants to fan Tempo. Janice Jolie is my roommate. She's currently doing a clown workshop in the living room. And that's her dog, lovely, sweet Tempo. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay. Church and Gerrard. What happens at 5 a.m.? Mansour, my boss, falls asleep in his van again. And there's no cell phone to be had, and there's no calling you, and the knife I keep hidden, it comes out of my shoe. Mansour's taught me many things about late-night hot dog vending, like cut the wieners diagonal in front and then a long line down the back they lie flat. keep the onions frying in grease. That smell is the best kind of tease, but he's never told me what to do when I'm the last one on the street. The sex workers are nowhere to be found. They've all stopped calling out, "Hot dog girl," because they just like the sound. Stopped ordering sausages from the back seats of cars. Stopped enduring the yelling of men spilling from bars. The pimps, they're all gone too. They're not here to tell me that I could hook too, that I could go to Hawaii, that if I get knocked up, they can clean out inside me. Don't I want better money than this? Don't I want to start each evening with a kiss? And I think that if I do that, that I'll end up with this hula girl charm on my wrist, and I'll lie back and watch her sway as I get fucked but never kissed. It's been hours since the drunken questions. I almost miss the slurred inflections. Yes, I sell things that look like dicks. No, I turn sausages and not tricks. Sorry, I don't have any corn relish, and the bacon bits aren't real, and I'm barely staying awake because hot dogs are my only meal. It's 5 a.m. now, and I'm falling asleep with hundreds of dollars shoved under my feet. If only I'd left with that sweet drunk dyke who said she'd double me home on her bike. Maybe she'd be surrounding me with sex like art and make me believe that I'm too smart to fall asleep behind this fucking hot dog cart. The sun splatters onto the street as I breathe in the fumes of propane and day-old meat. And somewhere else, Mansoor, you snore in your van. And somewhere else, I fall asleep again. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. If anybody wants to come see this show, it is on March 20th, and Theatre Passamarais will be putting out an invitation. It's a workshop, so I'm not going to have it memorized because you know. Yeah, but I would love to see you there, and let's come have fun. It's going to be weird and fun and sad and happy all at the same time, like most of my day. So thank you so much, everybody, and I am looking forward to Jennifer.
Thank you, Charlie. That was amazing.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to introduce our last reader this evening, the hostess with the mostest, the brilliant brains behind this entire lineup, Jennifer. So Jennifer Hosein is a Chukchuke, Montreal-born writer, visual artist, and educator of Trinidadian and South Asian ancestry, residing in Toronto. Her debut collection of poetry, A Map of Rain Days, published by Guernica Editions in 2020, was longlisted for the League of Canadian Poets 2021 Pat Lowther Memorial Award. Her poems, short fiction, creative nonfiction, and a play have been published in The Fiddlehead, The Quarantine Review, Event, Rubicon, Makara, as well as translated into Hungarian for the anthology Crystal Garden, Kristallika. Her artwork has appeared on book covers, in magazines, and in solo and group exhibitions in Toronto. It is also featured on the cover of A Map of Rain Days. You can find her online at www.jenniferhosein at HOSEIN.ca.
Thank you, Ellen. Wow, so to end the evening, I'm going to share my poems and art with you. Some of the poems are from my book, A Map of Rain Days, and some are newer, and I'll also read a short piece of creative nonfiction. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, I'm going to begin with two poems about my mother. Following heart surgery, she had a stroke that rendered her childlike. My mother's heart begins to drift away, but we are selfish and tell her to let them fix it, and we pace and pace the days. Don't tell her it's a poor sign, aortic valves open and close, that keeps her herself until she is not herself. Voice crooked, face fallen, buttons askew, and pants half on the floor. I cannot begin. Beloved mother is a clipped-winged bird that floats around in lace-edged nightgowns, soft, soft skin like a schoolgirl's, shooing away the cats and always packing her clothes to go home. The next poem is the title poem of my book, A Map of Rain Days. I am bent by the way that these things go. Put my face in my hands and pull the skin taut across miles and miles. Walk down the corridors in my mother's bruised shoes. My mother's toes are crooked and curled in a misguided arthritic map of rain days. A few days after we buried my mother, my daughter moved to Los Angeles. For the next poem, I borrowed from mythology. Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, is distraught when her daughter Persephone is taken by the king of the underworld, which results in winter. In the poem, I am both Demeter and Persephone. Winter. I am Demeter, in winter, black as Hades, turning fields to stone, forests to dust, in my wrath and despair that my beloved is gone. I pick rocks from the side of the road to eat in the absence of corn. They thunder along my intestines, dulling the noise in my head. I scream inside the walls of February, wait for my beloved, who is light, breath, sun, spring. Make love to boys I have turned to bones in this drought I have brought. I am Persephone, bound beneath the light, longing for the tick of my mother's heart, the pad of her yellowed feet on the floor. But my winter will linger for years, and my mother will tread across the skies, her feet into mountains, her face yellow as the sun peering down at the shadow I have become. Demeter is my mother, Persephone, my daughter. I am neither, I am all, I am only winter. Breath. Our breath sits heavy on the dashboard. Mother floats around the car with the snow. Our boots crunch and slide across new graves, and Uncle says, "She is here. No, she is here," blowing his vodka breath into the sky. Mopei. My country is an ice storm, trees bent to the devil and smelly, damp boots. On the bus, our noses are the same matching red, toques pulled low over foggy, crisp breath, holes in our glove thumbs, yet he scowls and says, "Go home, go back to your country, where you came from." So I tell him, yes, I'll go back, to the foot of Mount Royal, to the unconditional arms of my mother wrapped around me and my smelly boots. I tell him my mother's black coat against the winter white paysage is always and only home, and he should be so lucky. Spark. How I loved you as I flew across the metropolis to fall at your door, turn the key, creep into your bed. I rubbed the sleep from your eyes, you turned me to the wall. That's how we loved through the winter and spring, before you lost your home. So I took you over and So I took you in and you took me over the way a spark consumes a forest, turned me to ash that stuck to the soles of your feet during your tirades and blackouts, splattered your fabulous dinners across the kitchen walls, banged on the bedroom door while your son pleaded, "Daddy, please." Next, I'm going to read a short piece of creative nonfiction, 15. 15-year-old's bones scattered on the riverbed, the skull, the joggers, the urban myths. Where do I begin? With the glimmer and sheen of the deserted park at dusk, the naked trees and the crunch underfoot? At night, the spaces are vast and lonely. There is music and sometimes the strangled screams of women. From the window, you see nothing but your own reflection pasted over the long black fields. If you cry out for help on the street, cars pass you by. If you are dragged into the woods beside the road, no one stops. Trees are splendid, luminous beings stretching their arms to the sky. I am 15, in the land of strip malls and basement parties. There is only shopping and shoplifting, tripping out in the girls' washrooms. At lunch, I sit with the brown girls in a corner of the cafeteria. Away from their shelter, I run the gauntlet between the kids in the halls, on sidewalks, on buses. I am laughed at, spat on, shoved. When I go to see about a job, there's a man on the 54A bus. I am a lonely girl. The colors are black and blue. The black of his hands over my eyes, of the floor, a sliver of blue sky. I look for love with one of any of the men I meet. In their dusty apartments, I sit at secondhand formica tables that smell of Ajax and old toast. The Spanish painter speaks to me in French that rolls off his tongue like sugar beignets. The flower seller lives beside the streetcar tracks. On my way to visit them, I imagine the other lives that await me. I ride the subway home, smelling of aftershave and sex. Head shops, massage parlors, strip clubs, pimps in platform shoes. Marjorie takes me to the Young Street Strip on my sweet 16th, introduces me to her friends, 14-year-olds whose pimps ply me with compliments. Pretty lady, what's your name? What's your game? Little girl, don't be shy, don't walk away. We order clam chowder and French fries and look down on the strip. Neon lights and Sam the Record Man, cheap blowjobs and nickel bags. You can't get into the strip club across the street if you aren't 18, but you can suck a John's dick for $20 if you are 12. Now for a love poem. I love you. I love you, he said. You are my heart. I'll cut your tongue out so you can't speak like that anymore. I'll cut your feet off and I'll carry you around when I want. I'll cut your hands off so you can't touch another man's face the way you touch mine. Will you cut my cunt out, she asked, so I can't fuck another man or even myself? I'll cut it out and I'll keep it in a locked drawer. I'll take it out when I need to and place it in the space between your legs. Or maybe if I'm angry, I'll take it into another room, put it around my cock and thrash around some. I'll cut your breasts off so no man can look at them. Then you can wear what you like. What will you leave me? She asked. I'll leave you my right hand to hold when you're alone, and I'll leave you my heart. Next poem is called 6 a.m. Windows masked with the night's thick frost waning. Men sleep buried in the garage between slick, shiny cars and their own frigid feces. In the cold, blackened pandemic, silence wraps the lake, and I throw limbs across a decade into the apartment on Treewood Street. Amid crumpled newspaper nests, curdling plates, boots spread all over like berry jam. Where my mother settles on the green velvet sofa before her last slumbers, in bleached rooms where she speaks in wisps that don't convert to any mother tongue, but my own mother's tongue. Thick with the nights, we breathe into her waning breaths. My last poem is Silenced. I am silenced by ugly deeds, dense hands that stretch like sinew across a face, by tongues, their loudness and chatter, by nights I hold between my breaths, my tongue tied into paper cuts, skin woven into night, hands into parchment. Thank you so much for listening. And still hosting. So now that we're done, I'd like to thank you to all the wonderful poets. This has been an amazing night. Thank you, Ellen, Andrea, Charlie, Tyler. This is so brilliant. Thank you so much.